Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
August 1895, San Francisco Bay. A steamship called the Coptic is pulling into port after a long voyage from China. And on that ship is a 22-year-old man named Wong Kim Ark, born right here in San Francisco, raised in California, speaks English, knows no other home. He's done this before. Crossed the Pacific to visit his parents, came back, and was waved through without a second look. Not this time. This time, customs officials stop him on the gangway. They tell him he cannot enter the United States. They transfer him from ship to ship in the harbor, kept offshore in a legal limbo for 6 months. While the government decides what to do with a man it has decided, without much evidence, might not be a citizen at all. He was born here. He has a photograph. He has notarized statements from 3 white witnesses. He has spent his entire life in California. None of it matters, because the government of the United States has a theory, and the theory is this, that the Constitution does not apply to him. What happens next will set the rules for who gets to be born an American, rules that are being challenged in federal courts right now, today, in 2026. This is the Daily History Chronicle, where we explore the moments that shaped our world and discover why they still matter today. I'm Richard Backus, and every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. Today is March 28th, and on this date in 1898, the Supreme Court of the United States handed down a ruling in a case called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. It's one of the most important citizenship decisions in American history. Most people have never heard of it. And here's what fascinates me about this moment. Understanding what happened requires holding multiple truths at once. The Constitution did right. The country did wrong. And a justice most famous for doing the right thing voted on the wrong side. All 3 are true. All 3 matter. Picture this. San Francisco, late 19th century. The city is a crucible. Gold rush money, railroad labor, waves of immigration from China, Europe, Latin America. And in the middle of all of it, a second-generation Chinese-American man is sitting on a ship in the harbor, not allowed to come ashore, waiting for the country of his birth to decide if he belongs to it. Wong Kim Ark's parents came from China. They ran a business in San Francisco's Chinatown. They were, by any reasonable definition, residents, not citizens, because the law of the United States explicitly barred Chinese immigrants from ever becoming citizens, no matter how long they lived here, no matter how deeply they planted roots. That was just the law. The Naturalization Act of 1790 said citizenship was for free white persons. Even after the Civil War updated that to include people of African descent, the Chinese were still excluded. But Wong wasn't an immigrant. He was born here, and the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868 to establish citizenship for formerly enslaved people, contained 7 words that nobody had fully tested. All persons born in the United States. All persons. Not all white persons. Not all persons of approved ancestry. All persons. Let me build the clock for you, because the legal machinery here is intricate, and because this isn't just dry law. It's a story about what kind of country a place decides to be. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was the first and only federal law to ban immigration based on a specific nationality. It barred virtually all Chinese laborers from entering the U.S., and it barred the Chinese already here from ever naturalizing. It was renewed, expanded, and eventually made permanent before finally being repealed in 1943. At the time, Wong Kim Ark was stopped at the docks. It was the law of the land. The hostility behind it was naked and unapologetic. Western newspapers openly called for the expulsion of the Chinese, blamed them for undercutting wages, for being unassimilable, for being, in the blunt vocabulary of the era, a yellow peril. What the government argued when it detained him was this: yes, he was born in the United States, but his parents were subjects of the Emperor of China. Therefore, under their theory of how citizenship works, what legal scholars call jus sanguinis, citizenship by blood, Wong was also a Chinese subject, not an American citizen. The 7 words of the 14th Amendment, they said, were never meant to reach him. Here's what the evidence tells us. That argument had some legal support. China, like a number of other countries, grants citizenship by bloodline. A child born to Chinese nationals anywhere in the world can register as a Chinese citizen. The United States allows something similar. So there was a genuine legal question. When the Constitution says subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, did it mean everyone born on American soil or only those with no competing allegiance? Wong's lawyers argued the other side. Over 300 years of English common law, the foundation of American jurisprudence, held that virtually everyone born within a sovereign's territory was subject to that sovereign's jurisdiction. The exceptions were narrow and specific: children of foreign diplomats, children of invading armies. A laborer's son in San Francisco did not fit either exception. He was born here. He grew up here. He paid taxes here. He never lived anywhere else. The Chinese Six Companies, a civic organization representing the Chinese immigrant community in San Francisco, funded the fight. They understood what was at stake. If the government could declare that a man born in America was not American, then no Chinese American born in the United States was safe. The case wasn't just about Wong Kim Ark. It was about every family that had planted roots here and watched the law try repeatedly to rip them out. The district attorney for San Francisco viewed Wong's situation as an opportunity, a test case, the kind that gets to the Supreme Court and settles something for a generation. He was right about that. He just didn't get the answer he was hoping for. The Supreme Court ruled on March 28, 1898, 6-2. Justice Horace Gray wrote the majority opinion. He went deep into English common law, Calvin's case from 1608, Blackstone's commentaries, 2 centuries of precedent, and concluded that yes, the 14th Amendment meant what it said. All persons born in the United States, subject to its jurisdiction, are citizens. Wong Kim Ark's parents being Chinese subjects did not disqualify him. He was born here. He owed his allegiance to the United States. He was an American citizen, full stop. I find myself thinking about what it must have felt like to have that ruling read out, to have gone through 6 months on a ship in your own harbor, to have spent years in legal limbo over something that was obvious, and to finally have the highest court in the country say, yes, you are who you always said you were. But now we get to the part that troubles me, because one of the 2 justices who voted against Wong Kim Ark was John Marshall Harlan. And if you know anything about Harlan, that name should stop you cold. John Marshall Harlan is celebrated justly as the great dissenter. 2 years before the Wong Kim Ark ruling, he wrote the lone dissenting opinion in Plessy versus Ferguson, the case that upheld racial segregation. Every other justice signed off on separate but equal. Harlan stood alone and said the Constitution is colorblind. History vindicated him. He's a hero. And yet, in a lecture delivered shortly before the Wong Kim Ark decision came down, Harlan spoke about the Chinese and said they had long been excluded upon the idea that this is a race utterly foreign to us and never will assimilate with us. He said that without exclusion legislation, vast numbers of Chinese would have, in his words, rooted out the American population in the West. Think about that. The same man, the same moral conscience, a universe of courage in one case, deep, ugly prejudice in another. History doesn't give us clean heroes. It gives us human beings, and human beings are capable of remarkable courage and remarkable failure, sometimes in the same breath. Harlan got Plessy right because his instinct for the dignity of Black Americans was stronger than his comfort with the system. He got Wong Kim Ark wrong because his fear of Chinese immigration was stronger than his instinct for constitutional principle. Both things were inside the same person. Both things are true. In early 2025, executive orders were signed challenging birthright citizenship for children born in the United States to parents who are undocumented or here on temporary visas. Federal courts blocked the orders almost immediately. As of this episode, the cases are working their way through the courts. The legal question at the center of those cases is the same legal question that was at the center of United States versus Wong Kim Ark in 1898. The same 7 words. The same debate about what subject to the jurisdiction thereof actually means. The same argument that bloodline, not birthplace, should determine citizenship. That the government made against Wong and lost. We are still living with the consequences of that March day in 1898, not as a metaphor, as an active legal dispute happening right now in federal courtrooms over language that has not changed by a single syllable since it was ratified in 1868. A 2010 legal review noted that the Supreme Court has not directly re-examined the Wong Kim Ark precedent since the concept of illegal alien entered the language. The ruling settled birthright citizenship for children of legal residents. Whether it fully covers children of undocumented immigrants, that is a question courts are finally being pushed to answer. Wong Kim Ark won his case. He got to come ashore. He spent the rest of his life in California. And 127 years after his victory, the argument the government lost against him is being made again. Frederick Douglass once observed that the American nation is not yet what its founding documents promise, not yet equal to its ideals, but always in the process of becoming. The Constitution, in his reading, was not a description of reality, but a demand placed on the future. Wong Kim Ark's case is a perfect expression of that tension. The 14th Amendment was written to protect freed slaves. It ended up protecting a Chinese-American man in San Francisco Bay. The men who wrote it probably didn't envision that. The Constitution, it turns out, doesn't only protect the people its authors had in mind. It protects the people its words cover. And words once written have a reach that outlasts the intentions of the hands that wrote them. Here's where I land on this, for what it's worth. Wong Kim Ark did everything right. He kept records, he got witnesses, he filed a habeas corpus petition and fought his case all the way to the Supreme Court. He trusted the Constitution to mean what it said. And it did. The country that detained him also, in the end, produced the legal system that freed him. Both things are true. The Chinese Exclusion Act was a stain that lasted 60 years. The 14th Amendment, applied honestly, cut through it. Both things are part of the same country, the same story, the same complicated inheritance. And John Marshall Harlan, brilliant, courageous, morally compromised, and deeply human, reminds us that no one gets to be the hero of every chapter. Not him, not us. We do better in some moments than others. We hold some truths more firmly than others. The question worth asking isn't whether we're capable of getting it right. Wong Kim Ark proves we are. The question is whether we're willing to let the words mean what they say, especially when we'd rather they didn't. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, sit with these questions. If the Constitution means what it says, who decides when it applies? Can a person be simultaneously a hero in one fight and wrong in another? And what does that mean for how we judge people across history? And when a legal question gets settled and then unsettled a century later, what does that tell us about the difference between a ruling and a resolution? Because that's what Wong Kim Ark teaches us, not just about citizenship, but about the gap between what a nation writes down and what it actually believes, and whether those two things ever fully close. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, tell a friend. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.